Good morning, everyone. If we could please stand, I'm going to call this meeting to order and we're going to do Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Jake, if we could please, roll call.
Keisha Johnner,
Here.
Jim Mueller,
Here.
Steve McCombs. Here.
I'll entertain a motion for today's regular session agenda.
Move we approve today's agenda.
Second. McCombs. Aye. Mueller.
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye. Jake, communications?
None for me.
Board communications. Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to public comment. Oh, yep, okay. Public comments. This is the portion of the agenda which we could hear from the public that are items that are not listed below. These could possibly become future topics. Is there any public comments? Seeing anything online? No. Entertain a motion for today's consent agenda.
Make a motion, we approve today's consent agenda.
I'll support.
Mueller.
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
On to business. Item number 1 is the site plan for the animal health center. Missy.
So you're here today to review the proposed site plan for animal health centers to relocate. At the physical address will be 1480 New Bold Drive. This property was rezoned to C2 commercial in 1979 and never moved forward with any type of commercial use. As we know, zoning's permanent, so nobody ever made a request to take it back, so it remained in the commercial zoning. And animal health had been diligently looking for a place to relocate out in the county or city, either one, close to Knoxville. And this piece came up. So they did have a survey of the property. And the site plan before you is 10,000, just over 10,000 square foot commercial building. This will be small animal at this time. It's 10,160 square feet. It was required by the zoning ordinance to sit 100 feet away from all of the A1 zoning district, which it does. To the north, you'll see it shows 84 from the property line, but it's 100 feet from the A1 zoning district that runs down the middle of the road. So it does meet the requirements. There'll be no boarding done at the facility. The only patients that'll be there overnight would be ones with a medical necessity to be there overnight. They have been working with Cameron for the on-site wastewater system. And at this time, since there's no large animal facility going in, there is not a requirement to do the additional animal holding tank. That would come later if they do decide that they're going to do large animal on site. I believe it was brought out forward in the zoning commission meeting. They intend to continue to use the facility at the Knoxville Regional Livestock, which is less than a mile from this property. So the driveway has been approved by the county road department, as you can see. So the stormwater NPDES permit for construction's already been approved. The one requirement is, and the only intended parking at this time would be the portion within the right of way to meet the requirements of 5521 4B. So any on-street or off-street parking that has access to a public road or hard surface in this case would be required to pave that. And then they'll have, of course, their ADA parking compliance. Their hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, Saturday, 8 to noon. This is served by Marion County Rural Water. There was discussion on the lighting on the building. It'll be on the buildings, wall packs on the side. And I did urge him to make sure that they are respectful of the neighboring properties, to not have any type of lighting that would be interfering with those properties. Signage will be on posts out front. We'll get to that when they're ready and meet the sign ordinance of Marion County. There's no fencing proposed at this time. They did say that if there was ever to be a haul-in facility of large animals, they would fence the perimeter as a stopgap from escape. All electrical inspections will need to be done by the state of Iowa, and it'll need to be wired by a certified electrician. And county requirements of a permanent foundation for the primary structure. And then, as you can see, Hall Engineering has designed their detention. Since this is over the 10,000 square feet, they are required by code to have detention. And then I enclosed the checklist for you, and it meets all the requirements of the required checklist. This did obtain approval from the zoning commission last Tuesday, the 18th. We heard from 2 neighbors through this process. So,
That's what I was gonna ask you.
yep,
And regarding your zoning, was it unanimous or did you?
yes,
Okay.
yep.
All right.
Well, I don't know, did you have anything to add?
So I think that pretty well went over it, so we're just excited to hopefully have a larger facility, you know, we've outgrown where we had, and so hopefully we can have this one right here in Marion County. Right outside Knoxville.
This is the relocation of a current facility,
Correct.
correct? And that, is this the one by Smith, where Smith's carpet was, or?
That's correct,
Okay. Okay.
Looks like the site is 12 acres.
correct.
So
yep.
there is in the
Yes.
future possibility.
So they
if you
have
were to
room for
expand.
growth.
What's the plan to do with the other 10 acres while this development is done? You're gonna just ag the rest of it?
As
Yeah.
of right now, that's the plan. I know I've talked to the farmer, he's,
You gotta talk in the mic so the people
Yeah,
online can
yeah.
hear you.
with it, I've talked with the farmer that's farming it now, we're gonna be in discussion a little bit about whether he'll put it into soybeans, or we might leave it stagnant for a year and then start putting it into hay, so it'll be kind of the plan right now, so.
I always worry about weed control and stuff like that on development where it's taken out of ag. And then who knows what's gonna be done with the rest of it.
The only reason why we wouldn't do something this year is just because of the fact of moving dirt and everything like that, you know, if they have to plant, and then we have, you know, quite a bit of, because there is quite a bit that has to be cut off the top of it. So we'll have to do something with that dirt, so we'll probably just spread it out across the field, so.
Makes sense.
Clint, when do you plan to have it done?
Our plan is if everything gets approved, we've kind of met with all the contractors and everything. We kind of a proposed end date would be October of this
Okay.
year.
Well, I appreciate you looking and staying in Marion County. That means a lot to us. Board, do you have any other further questions? If
No.
not, I'll entertain a motion for Animal Health Center approval for site plan.
Move we approve the Animal Health Center site plan.
Second.
Johnner,
Aye,
McCombs,
Aye.
Mueller.
Aye.
thank you. If we'll give you a minute if you want to step out, if you, no problem. Mhm. On to item number 2, which is resolution 2025 -29. This is the waiver of the subdivision requirements on Sunset Acres. Missy.
So as defined by the Marion County subdivision ordinance and as supported by the county engineer as required, has been a request to waive the pavement surface requirements defined in the subdivision ordinance, the curb and gutter sidewalks and street lights. With that being said, it's a requirement that this consent and waiver, that all these requirements have been waived, be recorded with every lot in the subdivision. And it's also noted that completion of the subdivision shall not compel Marion County to maintain any portion of the infrastructure. So, I mean, it's clearly defined on the plat, the preliminary plat. That note was also added in the text, and then it's recorded again with every lot. So moving forward, this waiver identifies that these roads don't meet any type of county requirements and would not, at any time, there wouldn't be the ability to request the county take the roads unless the proper channels were taken to bring them to compliance, so.
Yeah. just wanting to make sure that all are present, that you understand that if this is approved, that we will not be maintaining any of it, and just making sure transparency for those that, I just don't want it down the future that, somebody bought a lot and then they're like, but we want it maintained, or they're coming back to us. So we have had that in the past, and so.
I will
just
say
like,
this waiver.
For the record, and transparency.
The waiver's also recorded with all the final documents, so when they record the subdivision and that pack of final documents, this waiver is also included in that.
I understand that. I can appreciate that. I do have just a couple questions, if you don't mind. Snow removal is gonna be privately funded and taken care of. Are you gonna establish an HOA in order to pay for that long term? It'll be part of the deeds of all the lots that are sold out of it. How wide is that street? At some point, if it eventually does become city property or whatever, will that meet the requirements? Or is that something that you're gonna have to take somebody's half of their front yard? And the reason I ask the question is my past experience in Pella, there was a development that was done this way back in the 80s/90s. And the property owners eventually came to us and said, why aren't you maintaining this? Why can't you do this? All of these things, and it was a private development. The developer eventually went belly up, and therefore there was no snow removal. There was none of these questions were asked at that time. I'm not suggesting that we're trying to pull a fast one. I'm just trying to solve problems that may not appear for another 20 or 30 years. So
To answer your question on the road width, it is a 66-foot, which is required by Marion County.
which is what was required,
So
okay.
the road width meets the requirements of the county. Obviously, they're proposing to gravel them at this time instead of pave and curb and gutter. So that's where the requirements, but the width would be acceptable if at some point somebody were to say, and obviously that's a discussion that's not just, they go ahead and pave and curb and gutter. They have the discussion with you as the supervisors and the county engineer to determine whether, if we bring these up to standards, would you then take them? So.
Tyler, are we gonna be managing, are we gonna be watching the quality of the gravel, or are we just gonna put gravel over dirt?
We're not doing
And I'm not
anything.
suggesting that we are, but I'm just asking the question.
We're not doing anything. There's private
But are
road.
it's gonna be a private road, but are we asking them to do it in such a way that all of a sudden in the spring, it's not gonna turn into a rocky quagmire?
No, we are
Okay.
not. We are, through the zoning and subdivision ordinances, we are ensuring that there are provisions that if things were ever brought to acceptable standards for road maintenance, for county
For
road
us.
maintenance, that there are things in place, such as the right-of-way width,
Okay.
and some other provisions through the zoning and subdivision review. The consent and waiver is saying you're not building it to an acceptable standard
Right.
at this time, and it's recorded. So we really have no say in what the road surface type, the gravel quality, anything like that at
Okay.
this point.
And that was just my question, was do we have any input in any of that stuff? And do you have a,
Not,
Oh.
if it's not in the zoning or subdivision ordinance.
Okay.
And they're waiving some of those sections via this.
did you have a comment?
I would love to share. There's 5 others with us here today that know as much about this and more. So we're super thankful for all the work that we've done with Missy. Ever since the day one, we've contacted Brad Udemark with Garden and Associates. So everything we're doing is Brad approved. It's all his work in coordination with Missy. They've been awesome to work with. We are not cutting any corners in terms of how we're investing. This represents not quite half of us that are invested in this. So from a financial standpoint, there's no concerns from our end on any of that. As much as even today, we're just, starting to, for the first time, bringing all the resources together for the contractors that are, with Pella Cooperative Electric, Iowa Rural Utility Association, Garden and Associates, Jesse Peterson doing all the road work and the tiling and the tying into everything that's going on around it with just some minor excavation and fixing waterways. And there's a lot of things we're fixing that haven't been addressed for a long time without no disrespect to anyone involved. We are very open and welcoming to anybody in this room or outside this room that has questions for us today or any point going forward. Obviously, there's always little confidential things that we need to manage, take care of. So we're not trying to hide any information from anybody because we're also working on all the things you mentioned, Jim, with covenants and HOA, and we're meeting all day today again. It's how many times have we done that? So there's been it's been a blessing to have 14 plus of us working on it because of the amount of resource support that we needed to have to help keep this moving and staying on track. So, and that's not going to change as we go forward and start selling our first lot, but we welcome questions.
And don't misunderstand the reason for my questions. I'm just trying to solve problems that we don't have yet. And if I didn't ask the tough questions, I wouldn't be doing my job.
I just have one other comment to your earlier point, Jim. The consent and waiver really allows development. It's similar to some of our site development requirements that were changed a few years ago that were kind of a hindrance for development, like paving a parking lot for a small commercial facility where the parking lot costs more than the entire development. You know, so we changed that to help prevent. I think that was the intent of the consent and waiver, is to help allow developments like this proceed without meeting all of the requirements, because this would be a multi-million-dollar road system to be constructed at this time, and probably no lots sold at this time. So, but there are those protections for the county here as well, that if in the future public roads, these roads were to become public roads, then we have these protections that they will meet the standards of X, Y, and Z, and be built to this standard prior to the county considering them for acceptance via the requirements of these ordinances, and then the road department has policies as well, for paving and whatnot.
Okay.
Even though they do meet, if they were to meet those requirements in the future, that does not mean the county has to accept.
That is true, yes. Yes, but the benefit here is that we have the consent and waiver, where in the past, we've been stuck with these developments that, you know, they didn't have that, and they weren't built to any type of standards, and were under this assumption, and maybe not an assumption, and ultimately accepted by the county to some lower standard that is burdensome now for us to maintain.
Actually, Jim, this is one of the better things we've had.
Well, and I'm actually encouraged that there's an HOA. At the end of the day, you know, unless that's in the title of the property is attached to the deed, that you have to be a member of the HOA and establish how that whole funding process happens in 15, 20, 30 years from now, then you're just creating a problem for somebody else down the road. So I encourage you and say thank you to you for having the foresight to do that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, property owners will be standing before the Board of Supervisors at some point saying, help me, please, and our hands are tied.
And that's why on page 3, I also included of your packet, the plat notes, I enlarged them onto there, which also states again, that these are, all subdivision roads and culverts shall remain private. The private road design does not meet the requirements of Marion County ordinance. Completion of the subdivision shall not compel the county to maintain any portion of the infrastructure. Development of the streets, street grades, and storm water shall comply with all CUDA standards. So, I mean, we've noted it multiple times that this is there. You know, and as with anything, we can't make potential buyers read it, but it's so noted. With that being said, these are 3 to 7 acre lots, and in talking with Cameron, there's no concern about, private wastewater, treatment on each lot. They do in fact have a utility easement in place, and it's so noted on the plat as well. This group has, you know, done everything that we've asked. There were a few things when we started through the preliminary plat that needed to be addressed. I guess the biggest one that there was discussion about was, Emily, can you go to the plat? So they added the north-south road that's gonna be known as 189th. And they did that at, to comply with the subdivision ordinance, as far as the, I guess I'm gonna say flow through the subdivision. If there were to be an emergency on one of the lots in the front, you wouldn't have this long strip of road and there's no other way out. So they have, that was one of the things added. I know, as I noted through this whole process, and the only other comment that came up at the zoning commission meeting was also discussed in the rezoning was drainage from the neighboring property owner. And again, they've got multiple easements through there for for water management. This property does set lower than the neighboring property. So obviously, it would not do this development any good to not maintain and keep all those tiles up to date because it's just going to flood the property. I do know they intend to start at the most southern part and move forward. We do require, so basically wherever they decide to sell lots, that road has to be complete before we can issue a building permit. So it's a little different than when you're working with cities that the final plat, you'll see the final plat here probably next month, but the final plat, if it's private roads, we don't require those roads to be in prior to. We do it, although or require them to be in prior to issuing a building permit. So.
John, did you have any comments?
Actually, most of it's been commented on already,
Great.
but I just did want to mention, there is some due diligence going into the roads. Jim, you mentioned just gravel on dirt.
Right.
You know, so there is, and I don't remember what it's called, what's that? Yeah, geogrid under the road and the mesh to just kind of maintain it from sinkage and stuff like that, so.
8 inches of underbelly gravel, the geogrid, and then another 5 inches on top, and that's all per Brad Udemark spec. So we're just following that. Jesse Peterson's following that.
Yeah, so we for sure don't want
I
to.
picked the worst case example and I recognize that.
We appreciate the questions. So, that's good.
The NPDS permit will be applied for, I believe, after approval preliminary before final. So there'll be Garden Associates be taking care of that process here.
Board, I do not have any further questions. Do either of you?
No, I'm pretty happy with the way everybody's looked this over.
I appreciate their due diligence. I will entertain a motion for resolution 2025-29.
I make a motion, we approve resolution 2025-29.
I'll support.
McCombs,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye. On to item number 3, which is the preliminary plat review.
I think
We've
we
kind of gone
discussed it
over
all.
Yep, I think we kind of went over through all this. Just remind the public again, how many lots you would be looking at when you're fully developed.
This is a 36 lot subdivision
All right,
with 4 private roads within it. 3 roads will come out to 190th in those locations. They've worked with the county road department and do have approval, meet the minimum requirements. 190th is a gravel road that services a subdivision.
all right. Or do you have any further questions regarding the preliminary plat?
No.
No, entertain a motion for the preliminary plat approval.
Move to approve the preliminary plat.
Second.
Mueller,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
Thank you, group, for coming. Thank you for your due diligence, and thank you for taking the time to answer all of our questions. And thank you for investing in Marion County. We appreciate it. So, thank you. On to item number 4 is the lease agreement for 3014 East Main Street. Board, before you is the state of Iowa has a lease agreement. We have done leases in the past. When we owned the property at 6th Street, we leased to state of Iowa. This lease would be for the 5th Judicial, which is the probation office. It's called the Iowa Department of Corrections 5th Judicial District. what they're looking at is having a lease with us for 3 offices. There is approximately 2,146 square feet that they could be in a common space. So that would be hallways, that would be a bathroom, that would be the break room, and then the hallway down to the rooms, and then the entryway. When I say common space, that is something that everybody in the building can use. So it would just be those 3 offices that we were looking at, that they would be shut off from the rest. The rent is looking at $1,500 a month and a 3-year lease. Was able to get some changes. I know last fall when we discussed this a little bit, there was an insurance question that has been satisfied through our insurance company. I spoke with them, sent that document to them, and they were fine with that. We also took out some clauses that we have to find space for them if, you know, we were to replace, you know, the building would have to, you know, if they were no longer going to be able to be in this building, that we would have to find place. We would just be then discussing with them where we would be looking at. So overall, I'm happy with the lease. I've worked hard with it. Barbara from the state has been very good to work with. I don't think Chris is on, or Chris is in the room, but I know at the time Chris didn't have any more issues. So do you have any questions in regarding the lease?
I do not, other than to say thank you for taking this on, Keisha. This is one of those things that's sometimes difficult to organize and herd to a conclusion. I think it's also critical that we as a county look at what space do we have, what space do we need, and what other possibilities do we have in order to either sell it, lease it, or somehow reduce the burden on the taxpayer. So I think having this and having the state as our tenant is a great solution for everybody involved. So thank you to you, and I look forward to approving this and getting the state as a tenant.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. I also would like to say to those that are not in the room with us and maybe listening, this space is still going to be able to be utilized by the county. This building will be able to be utilized, especially those that have meetings after hours. This space can be utilized. So when it comes to county government. So with that, Steve, do you have any questions on it?
No,
All right. I will entertain a motion for the lease agreement with the state of Iowa.
Move to approve the lease agreement with the state of Iowa.
Second. Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
aye.
Mueller.
Aye.
That lease agreement will take effect July 1st, 2025. On to item number 5. This is the Marion County Development Director position. I would like to start off and say Carla Isink, our Executive Director of Marion County Development, has given her notice of retirement. Carla has been with us for 29 years. She's a very dedicated employee, and we appreciate everything she's done. She's done a lot for the county, and I wanted to bring it before the board in regarding the position and how to proceed in the replacement. The board has done a lot of different things in the past in regarding hiring. We've done it as we've had the applicants come before us. We've had a hiring committee. The most recently, we had a hiring committee when we hired for our IT position. I think the hiring committee works much better. I think that it's the committee then can do the interviews and then give a recommendation back to the board, and which is very helpful. It streamlines the process, and I personally just really like that process. What I would like to know is regarding this committee, what are you guys thinking on how many members to interview, and who are you thinking that you would like to be put on the committee? And I can start off. I mean, I have thought about this some. I know the committee, and regarding, I would like one representative from the Board of Supervisors, and Jim, since you are her liaison, I thought that it would be important that you would be on that committee. I also know that I have visited with Carla and her commissioner. I think it's important that we have one of her commissioners, or one of the economic development commissioners. There was a recommendation, and that would be Stephanie Bonstetter. She is going to become the chair come July 1st. I guess as long as she's willing to accept that position. But I would seek that we add her. And then the third person, I don't know who we were thinking, if we want like a outside person such as Greater Des Moines Partnership, or you're seeking an outside economic director. I just think for transparency that it's important that we as a board, we have this committee, and Carla and I have spoke. Carla was willing to serve on that committee, and she and I have spoken, and I've asked for transparency that my behalf, I would prefer her not to be on that. I think that it's important that it looks, I just think that she's, the service in which she's done has done a great job. And these things are always difficult, but I think for the transparency of it, it's best that we don't have the current person holding that position in hiring. That's my viewpoint. I want to hear from what you guys think.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, but I'd have to give that some thought.
Oh, I get it. And that's why it's always good that we have discussion at the table.
That's why it's called discussion, right?
Yeah.
And frankly, I don't have any issues with all the points that you just brought up, and have no problem with that whole process of creating that, the committee in order to do the interviews and those kind of things. I would recommend that we, rather than reach out and have somebody from Des Moines Partnership, I'd rather have somebody from the local industries, whether that's a Pelicorp, a Weiler, a Vermeer, or whomever, if they have direct impact for development within the county. I'd love to have somebody like that on the committee rather than somebody from Des Moines.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I also think that it's really important to open up the interview process, or the seeking the resumes and things, open that wider than just the county website.
Okay.
I think that's critically important to post it to Indeed or whomever, because we need to make sure that this is a critical position that, I mean, Carla's been in the position for 29 years. So we're in theory hiring somebody that's gonna be in that spot for 30 years. Let's make sure we take our time, do our due diligence, and hire the right person to sit on the seat in the bus.
Okay.
And I'm not saying anything about anybody who's currently in the office. That's not it at all. That person may already be the best person for that. But we don't know what's out there unless we look. So my suggestion is have the committee created that would include some of the local industry as well, and then broaden the stretch. If that means that we need to go beyond the scope of, April 8th with somebody getting offered, in the month of April, if that extends into May, I don't care. Let's make sure we get the right person for the right person on the job. The seat on the bus.
I would like to add that I have, after my discussion with Carla yesterday, I do think it's important that Carla could be able to help us give a suggestion to the committee on narrowing down the candidates. So she could look at those and say, this is what I would consider qualified. Now, remember, would be a suggestion. That doesn't, the committee wouldn't have the final say. And then also,
Carla needs some type of involvement.
and Carla was willing, and
Totally agree.
Carla has been willing to, has been gracious enough to help us with a list of questions, and for the committee. So, but yeah.
Could I offer some suggestions perhaps?
Sure. Sorry, I shouldn't speak.
I would guess if you were hiring a surgeon, you would make sure you had a surgeon on the selection committee. My suggestion to you is that one of those people on that committee needs to be a professional economic developer. And if it is not me, it should be somebody who is a professional economic developer. There are very many perspectives that this particular position has to deal with, and only another professional economic developer understands the rigors that this position requires. And I think that's a perspective on a selection committee that if you do not have somebody from that perspective, business is different, government is different. Those perspectives are much different understanding of the requirements of the position than what a professional economic developer is. Now, whether you select somebody who is from a neighboring county that is a professional economic developer, somebody like suggested at the partnership, somebody through Professional Developers of Iowa, but another person, if you're not going to have me, that is from that profession that can help you evaluate the answers that those candidates are providing in the interview. Otherwise, you have people who are not professional economic developers who do not know perhaps what exactly the job entails as much as somebody who does that job 24/7 all throughout the year in another role. The other thing that I would remind you, and I'm fine with you extending, that's certainly your prerogative to extend it, but I will remind you, once I retire April 29th, I cannot have any contact with you. To achieve bona fide retirement, I cannot volunteer for you, I cannot get paid by you, so I cannot have any contact with you for 4 months. That is an IPERS rule.
Appreciate that, Carla. So, board, to be able to move the process along, I think it's important that we figure out how many people we'd want on that committee. And if this is something, I mean, we have posted the position. It is out there. I do think it would be important that our HR manager could be sitting in on the meeting. And whether that would be, depending on how many numbers there are, that could be that if there was a tie, she could vote, but otherwise she'd be a non-voting member. But it just depends on if you're wanting to extend, it would. Steve, do you have any thoughts?
Well, Carla just said if we extend it, we'll have no contact with her
Correct. Yeah.
after a certain period of time.
We do, I mean, thankfully, we do have the assistant. And Christopher has been with us quite some time, and I appreciate what Carla and Christopher have been working on. And I believe Carla has helped prepare him, which is good. I mean, for
And I
in
think
time of absence, I guess.
I think the other thing that we need to make sure that we point out too is, clearly we're not going to hire some college grad that's got zero experience.
Right.
I mean, I appreciate the surgeon analogy. However, we're not going to go out and just get somebody green, or we're not going to look for that. They're not going to make the grade even to get an interview. So there is a certain amount of expertise that absolutely I agree and totally support. But I think the issue is we need to make sure that whoever it is that sits in that seat has the local perspective as well as, a general knowledge of what does it take, what does it do, what do we need to have? And that's all I'm trying to be mindful of. Just trying to make sure that we broaden that net so that we look at all the candidates, all their qualifications, and then provide an opportunity to ask the pertinent questions so that then they can be brought forward and brought to the full Board of Supervisors for final selection.
The one thing I would remind you, when we did the assistant position, we did post it at Professional Developers. I posted it at Professional Developers of Iowa. I put it on Iowa Workforce Development site. I also posted it through the Des Moines Partnership site. You will need to then find somebody to do those postings if that's indeed what you want to do. And you may also want to indeed adjust the end date for accepting applications.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. Yeah. Depending upon whether we are looking at closing it and trying to do interviews sooner than later, we may need to, cut the time in which, when the cutoff date, which I think it was at 4 or 4:30 on the 4th, we could do something at noon. If not, then we could extend that. We could extend it so that we can be, further discussing this. And, but I also think this is one of these, this is kind of how I'm feeling. I'm just gonna put it out there. If we know kind of what we're looking at, if you're going to be the Board of Supervisor representative, if you're good with having a commissioner on, you're good with having Lisa on, then that fourth person could either be an industry or an economic development person, in which you and Lisa could be working on to try to locate that. I would be okay with that. Another big reason I wanted to have this discussion is I want to make sure that we're very clear for our HR, and we're transparent to the public, is that we're looking at, when we do this hiring, I want the interview committee, again, these are my thoughts, as long as the board is agreeing with this, that the interview committee would then be able to select a candidate they deem qualified. And then the hiring committee has the approval from the Board of Supervisors to extend an offer to the chosen candidate. However, the final offer and salary will be needed to be approved by the full Board of Supervisors. Okay, that allows you to be able to notify that person, and it's not done in a public setting. And that, we're notifying and then the media finds out and they find out, and that's just, it's just not a great situation to be in. But, how do you guys feel about that? How do you feel, Steve, how do you feel about if Jim is on that committee, we have the commissioner on it, and then we have our HR manager, and then we're allowing them to find another, whether it would be an industry or a local, or economic development personnel.
No, I'm fine with that.
Is that, okay?
I'm good with it.
Okay.
And I think we need to be prepared to extend the due dates and things on that
Mhm.
too.
Okay, yep, no, I agree. If, I really would like you to be able to take lead on that and work with Lisa on that. So. Jake, I do have something written out. I'm going to read it, and then see if they agree to it, but I do have something written, so if you would like it, okay? The hiring committee, which consists of, Board of Supervisor Mueller, Commissioner Bonstetter, HR manager, and a fourth person, which would be either an industry, or an economic development representative. Lisa would be a non-voting member at this point. They will interview the selected candidates they deem qualified. The hiring committee has approval from the Board of Supervisors to extend an offer to a chosen candidate. However, the final offer and salary will need to be approved by the Board of Supervisors. That would, which I would suggest.
I agree.
If so, I have a motion to approve what I said.
Move to approve what she read.
Second.
Holmes,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate the conversation. Thank you, Carla. I appreciate it. Item number 6 is the FY26 Marion County proposed budget. This is setting the public hearing date for 4/22/25. Jake.
Yeah, this is just a result of earlier action today with a public hearing. Part of the process is that all cities, schools, counties need to go through. So the max property tax hearing was held. The next step is considering the FY26 budget. Feels like we worked on that a long time ago. It's just, it's a couple month process. So we need to set the public hearing date of 4/22. So we have time to get notice to the newspaper and on our websites of that public hearing notice for actual budget consideration on the 22nd. So the 22nd will be the regular budget public hearing, resolution to consider and approve the budget, a resolution to set salary for elected officials, and a resolution to distribute the local option sales tax funds, all of which were integral and detailed discussions when you guys all, during the month of February, when all those discussions were taking place.
Forward, it's pretty self-explanatory, and I appreciate you explaining to the public, Jake, in regarding this. Are you good with setting the public hearing date for 22/25?
Yep.
Yep, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'll support.
Mueller,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
Jake, thank you for your due diligence on that. I know that it takes a lot of time and to do that, especially the budget. Item number 7, board updates. Mr. Mueller, do you have any updates?
I am making appointments with all the department heads to sit down and get tours, meet people, and talk about what supervisor decisions could impact them both positively or negatively, how we can help support them. I've had a few of them, and I'm going to continue to reach out to everybody, so please be patient. I've only got a certain amount of time that I can do these, and some of you have some rather large departments that will take an entire day to do. So I am dedicated to making sure that I get to know everybody and develop a relationship. I think it's critical. So heads up, it's coming.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim.
I have a HERDA meeting Thursday.
Thank you, Steve, on that. Couple items for me. Board, I think we need to be thinking in the near future about putting an agenda item on for naming the buildings. I think we need to finalize that. I think that is important. So we have the building on Lincoln. So, and then we have the building on May, which is 3014 East Main. So naming those buildings so
okay.
that when we move.
Okay.
I guess I'm gonna add another third item. I have 3 things. Next week I do plan to move. I'm going to be moving to the 4th floor at the courthouse. So my office will be there. And the third item is the opioid committee. Board, we need to be thinking about putting that committee together. I am willing to have volunteers, if somebody wants to send an email and regarding volunteering, or if you have a recommendation. I would suggest, though, if you would like to volunteer and you do plan to be a recipient, I think we need to know that, because I think we as a board need to be able to further discuss how we want to approach that. So, okay. So those are some items that will be coming up in April meeting. Otherwise, I have nothing more. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll support.
McCombs,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Johnner.
Thank you, everyone.